Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to episode 3 of the Pro Show. Trust you are all well, keeping safe, and had a good public holiday. Just decided something that we needed instead of drifting away from having a usual footballer. Let's get a bit of insight from somebody who has actually explored the mind of the Capetonian footballers. So, without further ado, allow me to introduce a very special guest who, in my opinion, is football royalty. He is the sports chaplain of Stellenbosch FC. Bruce, Nadin, welcome, sir. How are you?
I'm great, thanks. Good to be here, and I don't know how well I know the mind of the Capetonian footballer, but it's certainly good to be on here and take the opportunity to explore some of these really important issues a little bit more deeply. So thanks for having me on the show.
Thank you for coming on. Really, I must say I'm humbled and honored that you took this time out, especially after Leicester City picked up such an awesome result over the weekend. So we're all in good spirits, I could say. Firstly, Bruce, let's just dive right into it. I would like you to tell me about your profession. What is the role of a sports chaplain? How long have you been in the field? Where has your journey taken you?
Well, I think the first thing I'd want to say is that I think sports chaplaincy found me. I didn't find it, or should I say that I think God found this space for me. I was leading a church just outside of Leicester, back home, from 1999 to about 2009. And part the way through that time, an opportunity opened at Leicester City to offer part-time pastoral and spiritual care to people of all faiths and none. So I became the sports chaplain from 2005 to 2009 at Leicester City. And it wasn't an opportunity I was looking for. Really enjoyed it. It was wonderful to be able to serve the club that I've supported, my father supported, and my grandfather before supported. I always say to people in England, you don't choose your team chooses you. And that was a great privilege, carried on leading the church, but also sports chaplain. Moved to South Africa in 2009. No plans to get involved in high performance sports ministry. I was working with a Christian sports ministry called Ambassadors in Sports, now called Ambassadors Football. And very soon after I arrived here, I got involved at ASD Cape Town, Africa Soccer Developments. It's where the likes of Ayanda Potosi, Ibrahim Sadat, and Rushan Daruk, for example, graduated from there. And then a year after I was there, I met a footballer called Johnny Armaghan. And he asked me to walk a road with him. He was at Vasco at the time, then signed for Santos. Cutting a very long story short, by about 2013, I'm formally or informally mentoring, a dozen or so footballers across the country, as well as being chaplain at ASD, and beginning to think, maybe this is what I should be doing full time. And then in 2014, God just orchestrated an opportunity at what was then IX Cape Town. And we've subsequently set up a national ministry so we can start to train other people, so we can offer volunteer pastoral and spiritual care to sports people, not just in football, but across the country. So I'm really excited about that journey. As I say, I was never, ever looking to be a sports chaplain. But I think I've got a little bit of experience now. I'm in my 16th year, actually about to start my 17th season. And, really excited about that, particularly this new chapter at Stellenbosch Football Club.
Lovely. Look, you've obviously been in it for a while, and I can honestly tell you, just speaking to you, it's your calling. You're awesome at it. I know of people that you've spoken at their clubs. He's not here at the moment, Craig, but he's obviously training for some. So he even said after you spoke at Santos, it changed his whole mind and his whole mindset. Everything changed. So I must say, massive respect for the impact that you've got. It's always good to see people like yourself having an impact in Cape Town football as well, because we'll come on to some of the challenges later, but I think we can both agree that the Capetonian footballer has a unique mind of his own. Of course, like you said, you've seen a lot of things in the past, that type of thing. But I would just say the Capetonian footballer copes with challenges that he is surrounded, such as substance abuse, gangsterism, the pressures of professional football, coming out of difficult communities, that type of thing.
I think there's not a simple, straightforward answer to that, Devon, because the reality is that, you know, the social and economic circumstances that many of our young people are coming out of, I think, often act as huge barriers to our youngsters being able to realize their potential. And I know some people will say, oh, that's making excuses. I don't think it is. I think these challenges are incredibly real. A lot of our young people's development, educationally, emotionally, there's a lot is stunted and damaged as a result of those issues, and there's a lot of hidden and unspoken trauma. You know, I've worked with footballers who've experienced things I never would have experienced growing up. You know, footballers telling me about seeing people murdered in front of them, and you know, regularly seeing gang violence and violence being normal in their life experience. And coming from the UK, that isn't the experience of the majority of our talented young footballers growing up. But at the same time, I've seen footballers here who somehow miraculously have been able to almost use that as the soil from which they are able to push through, and actually the challenges they face have become fertile ground for them to develop as people and as footballers. But they're often the exception, and I don't think we should downplay the significance of those social and economic challenges for a lot of our kids growing up. I think it makes it more difficult than I think people looking in from the outside might realize. So, you know, I'm sympathetic towards that. I think I'm compassionate towards that. But at the same time, I think, you know, we've got to help young footballers develop character. We've got to help them develop not just a mindset, but actually a worldview. Because I think there's so much in the kind of gangster mindset. There's so much in our communities that is negative and actually drags you away from realizing your full potential. And so I think it's about helping young people ground their lives in a really solid sense of their identity and their self-worth and their significance, and recognizing that they're not defined, they're shaped, but not defined by their circumstances and their background.
100%. Yeah, that's you've hit the nail spot on, right on the head. Like you said, it does form, I wouldn't say, like you said, it molds them. Sometimes it fuels in these circumstances that they're in, it fuels them. Another question that I've got, in terms of recovery from injuries, mental health, which is huge in sport right now. I've seen even at the Olympics as well, a lot of athletes pulled out due to mental health issues, which is becoming a bit more prominent right now. I would just say the Capetonian footballer, in essence, deals with injuries and mental health, because at the end of the day, they are human. Let's not hide that fact.
Injuries are tough, and I think wherever you are in the world, particularly when you have a serious injury and you've got to spend a lot of time in rehab and on the sidelines. I've been really fortunate in my time in Cape Town in that I've been involved in organizations where the medical support that is offered to the footballers has been of a very high standard. At ASD Cape Town, at Ajax, now Spurs, and now at Stellenbosch. Exceptional staff on the medical side who aren't just highly skilled and qualified in their medical and physio expertise, but also have a really holistic approach and care for their players. And I think being in a supportive environment like that, and I think having the added bonus of having a sports chaplain, I think makes the journey through rehab a lot easier. But I can tell you that I've had players who've contacted me from some other clubs, including PSL clubs, who've got into very dark spaces when they're injured. And some of that has been down to, a lack of care, but also sometimes having coaches or people around the club who's, let's just say the way they speak to the players hasn't aided the healing process. So when you're injured, you've got to, there's so many things that happen to you. You grieve the loss of fitness and being able to do what you love every day. There's possibly insecurity about what this might mean for the long term of your career. Will I get that next contract? Even if I've got a longer contract, will I come back the same as I was before? You can get into very dark spaces, and I think having supportive people and safe spaces, and I think that's where someone like myself does come in. I think we add value over and above the brilliant work that physios and others can do. So I always say to players, stay connected. Find out as much as you can about your injury. Use that as a way of learning about your body. You need to come to a place of acceptance. This has happened. Stay in the process, but don't rush it. Set yourself goals, celebrate victories. I remember one player at Ajax, he was away from home, and that also makes it tougher, and every time he made progress, he'd actually take a video and he'd even show how there was maybe more flexibility in his leg. And, and he was able to celebrate that himself, but also celebrate it with his family and friends in another part of the country. And then, just having positive self-talk and things like that. So I think there are definitely ways in which players can, come through these times, but I don't believe anybody can come through a period of rehab and injury successfully without having really positive holistic support around them. And then you mentioned the mental health issues. I mean, there's no doubt that injury can be one of those spaces where sports people can get into to dark spaces. I think there are many reasons why we see high performance sports people suffer actually higher levels of mental health breakdown than we see in the population at large. I mean, you think of the three high profile cases at the moment, the Japanese tennis player, the gymnast, Ben Stokes. These are all people who, in terms of their sport, clearly have a lot of mental strength.
Exactly.
You have to have got where you've got, and to have consistently achieved what you've had. But being mentally strong in one area of your life doesn't necessarily mean that you're navigating everything healthily from an emotional perspective. We can spend a lot of time, talking about that today, and I need to make it clear I'm not a psychologist and I'm not a psychiatrist as well. Mental health is not my area, but I think certainly those high profile guys, the higher profile you go, the more people have got things to say about you, the more you're in the spotlight. And we look at that from the outside and we think, wow, it must be great to be a celebrity. But actually, the more rarefied the air comes up there, actually the lonelier it becomes.
True.
The greater the pressure is. And where do you go to offload? Where do you go to say, actually, life sucks? Right. I'm not enjoying this anymore, because you're constantly being told to be strong, to be strong, to be strong. And I always say to footballers, when you cross that white line, you've got to be strong and you've got to fake it. When you go out on the field, you've got to have mental tools to fake it. Even when you're not feeling great, you've got to find ways to fake it in the moment. But when you leave the field, those same things that work on the field don't work off the field.
Don't work off the pitch.
I think you've got to have safe spaces where you can offload and just say, I don't feel good about this. I'm feeling low at the moment. And what I've found is that when sports people just come and talk to you sometimes and start to open up about how they're feeling, just talking about it. There's no answers. You've not changed the situation. I can't change the situation for someone.
Exactly.
But actually just talking about it often and talking to someone you know is not going to gossip to other people, talk to anyone else about it. And that's what Chaplins do. We're a safe space, make it confidential. What I found is that those guys often leave going, I already feel better. But nothing's changed. All you've done is talk about it. That's all you've done. And somebody's validated your experience and said, yeah, I can see why you're feeling like that. Yeah. And you've been listened, you've been heard, you've been understood, and you've not been judged, you've not been condemned. And yes, sometimes you might say, maybe you should think about this, or maybe you should think about that. But a lot of the time, actually, the benefit comes just from saying, this is how it feels, and being emotionally honest and offloading.
Fair. Yeah, that was awesome insight, really. But I also just want to dive into, you just recently joined Stellenbosch. So nothing but happiness for you going on the journey at Stellenbosch. You guys, or Stellenbosch, had a bit of a different season last season. But what is the mood like in the camp ahead of the new season?
I think it's really positive. I mean, I think that question is probably better asked to the players and the coaches. I think that the first thing I would say is, you know, I was still at Cape Town Spurs, and you know, it was wonderful because that was a tough season to see the club actually stay up. And you know, anybody listening here tonight who's involved with Cape Town Spurs, I just want to say I wish you all the best for the season, because we need that club back in the PSL. And I think,
definitely,
you know, our youth development in the city needs that club. I need to Canva back in the PSL. And but in terms of Stellenbosch, I mean, the sense is actually that actually their performances were better than the previous season. And I know from the statistical analysis that they've done is their expected goals for and against should have been a lot better. They should have scored more goals, and they probably should have let a few less in. So their expected goals were actually really high, and probably based on that, they should have finished in the top 8. So although the number of points gained didn't suggest they'd improved, their performances overall consistently a lot better. And I think, you know, there's really good experience in the squad. I have to say, I've been hugely impressed with the character of the senior leaders at Stellenbosch. And if any of them do end up listening to this, I'm not trying to get them on side, but I've told them I'm hugely impressed with the senior leaders in the dressing room. But there's a lot of really talented youngsters coming through, and some of them have got another season under their belt, and there's no reason why they can't improve this year. So I think the feeling is that Stellenbosch can push on and not be fighting relegation, and hopefully, you know, pushing for the top 8. But it's a bigger project. You know, coming in as a new boy, there's a real sense that this is a football club that wants to be rooted in its community, making a difference in its community, and bringing hope to its community through football. And so in that sense, it's more than just a football club. And I'm really looking forward to, you know, not just supporting the players and staff off the field, but actually being part of that journey with the club as well, because they're doing some really good things in the community.
Yeah, no, I think I've been monitoring their pre-season results as well, and you can already see a difference. They're definitely not going to have the same season like they had last year, that's for sure. But I want to wish you all the best with him this season. I have no doubt you guys are going to do great things. Now, let's talk about your beloved Leicester City. I want to come on to the year that... Yeah.
That side.
I want to come on to the year that you guys won the league. Look, for me, it was the last time at odds. You guys... Arsenal did do the double over you guys, but you guys still finished 10 points clear of us. What was it like being part of that? To be a part of one of the greatest stories in history.
Well, I mean, being part of that 6,000 miles away.
Being part of it
was. I mean, the first thing to say is that I never ever, once the Premier League started and the gap between the rich and the rest got a lot bigger, I never thought that we'd see anyone outside of the Big Six win the Premier League. And I certainly never thought that I'd see Leicester City win the Premier League. My only hope was I'd see us win the FA Cup for my dad, who's now 83, before he died, and that has happened. I thought, there's always a chance in the cups. You get a nice draw, and you might only have to beat one of the big clubs once. And on any day, that might just be possible. For me, Leicester City has always been a yo-yo club, and we've spent about half of our history in the top flight and the other half in what is now the Championship, and one season in the third tier, which we won't go into. But yeah, I think just staying in the Premier League for like a 10-year period felt like a dream, and maybe winning an FA Cup. It was unbelievable, because even we were like, we thought our moment in the sun was when Vardy broke that record for consecutive games and happened to do it against Manchester United. We thought, well, that's Leicester's moment in the sun. And they just carried on getting the results. And then we came to that February in 2016, and I think we'd got Liverpool at home, Man City away, Arsenal away. And actually, someone at Ajax asked me, they said to me, "Don't you think you're going to do it?" And I said, I think if we get 4 points from these 3 games, we'll be in contention, and I'll be confident that we might actually make top 4, which in itself would have been amazing. And of course, they beat Liverpool, they beat Man City, and then lost in the last minute to your beloved Arsenal. We were down to 10 men. And funnily enough, that was the moment. The players say that was the moment when they really believed they could do it. They went away. Ranieri gave them a week off, and they really believed they could do it. And I have to say, the closer we got, I actually stopped enjoying it a little bit, actually, because we're never going to be in this position again. And I still thought the wheels would come off. It wasn't until Eden Hazard scored that equalising goal against Spurs that I truly believed that Leicester City had done it. And I was really fortunate. I'd already booked with the club to go back home. They sorted me out with a ticket, and I went back for just 5 or 6 days. It was great to go to the training ground the day before they lifted the trophy. And whilst quite a few of the players had changed from my time there, Andy King was a junior when I started at the club. And now had won League One, the Championship, and the Premier League with the assistant coach Craig Shakespeare, the head of scouting Steve Walsh, the head of medical, the kitchen staff, the laundry ladies, and many others was still at the club from my time there. And to be able to, just be at the club the day before and sharing their joy, and sharing their success, probably one of the most humbling and emotional experiences of my life. I remember the next day was also crazy. Like, got up early, I had breakfast with Andy King's parents, and they went into City because they couldn't believe it either. Their son being in the Premier League was already a result, but never thought they'd see him win the Premier League. And so reminiscing about when he was 16 at the club and hoping to make it as a pro, and those journeys, meeting old friends and going to the stadium, and just the unbridled, wide-eyed disbelief that this had happened. I don't know if certainly the English Premier League, but I'm not even sure if globally sport will see such an outrageous underdog story ever again. Because even if Leicester went on to win the Premier League again, and I think the odds on that are still pretty long, it will be nothing like that season. It just came from nowhere. And I think even if you weren't a Leicester fan, you got caught up in it. I think in the end, I think we became everybody's second favourite team. So
definitely. Look, one thing that you mentioned now, which you can clearly see it. Just like you said, that it seems like a family club.
Yeah.
I can honestly say, as an Arsenal fan with owners who are not, how can I put this? They're not
Yeah.
entwined with the fans.
No.
But I mean, look at Leicester, their owners, their hierarchy is in touch with the fans, and you can
Yeah.
see it's a family club.
Yeah.
Also, the way they are run off the pitch, the way they do their business. Like we've mentioned, they don't spend a lot of money, but they reinvest their money into their squad properly, the way I would want us
Yeah.
to.
You know,
I mean, you guys
I
have already. Sorry,
remember
go.
2010. After the World Cup, I went back to see family. It was just
Mm,
before the season was starting, and I was actually down at the offices at what is now the King Power Stadium, and there was all these Thai people around the building. They were obviously doing the forensics on, are we going to take over this club and whatever. And I just remember the sheer, sense of fear. Maybe is too strong a word, but there was real anxiety around the club
mm,
about we needed investment and we needed money, but who are these people? There were so many bad stories in English
mm.
football about foreign owners coming in and
Exactly.
almost asset stripping the club or not respecting its history and its tradition. Leicester won the football lottery when they got this family. Uh,
Mm.
these guys don't live in Leicester, and yet they've become part of the fabric of the city.
Family.
They have respected the traditions of the club. They've respected Leicester's a very diverse, multi-ethnic city. They've kind of respected that and understood that. They've come in and they've changed things, but they've only changed and built on what was already good.
What was already in place.
In terms of
Mm.
and this is like absolutely genuine stuff. Even before the club were anywhere near the Premier League, the free things that they give to the fans. If it's the chairman's birthday, you get a free drink and a cupcake.
Exactly.
Away fans are told if you arrive early before you get any coach, you get breakfast and a cup of coffee.
Mm.
And they might seem like small things. The other day, the Community Shield, all the Leicester fans arrive and there's a flag on their seat.
Now look there.
And they might seem like small things, but actually there's a connectedness, there's a togetherness, and if you have that togetherness right through your organization, I think it means that you are able to achieve more than the sum of the parts. I know staff who work at the club who, when I was there, were maybe in junior or middle positions and are now in senior positions, maybe in the ticket office, maybe in the commercial side. And they just talk about how they're given real license to be the very best that they can be. They're trusted. They're given resources to do creative things and to do positive things. So I think... and that means that people turn up to work and they're happy, they're satisfied. Of course, success always helps. Success always helps.
True.
I don't think this has happened by accident. There's been a vision, a plan, but there's also been a culture and values behind it. And for that reason, I'm confident. I'm not confident that necessarily every season will be a great season or Leicester will challenge the Big Six, but I'm really confident that the wheels aren't going to come off soon. The club is in incredible hands, has incredible leadership, and I think we'll continue to beat the money, or we'll continue to at least upset the money. There are, even outside of the Big Six, there are richer clubs, better resource clubs than Leicester. But I'm really confident with the culture, the values that have been set at the club that, the next few seasons can continue to be, relative to the club's history, really successful. Whether we can win another trophy, I don't know. But it's great to hear the players after the Community Shield going, now to win another one. And there's that belief now around the club that, yeah, Leicester are here to stay. Leicester are here to upset the big boys and make them feel uncomfortable. And I think some of the big investment we've seen, even in the last few weeks, Man City and now Chelsea, is actually as a result of what Leicester have done.
Exactly. True. Look, you've touched on something awesome. It's perfectly lined up. You've just recently won the Community Shield. You've won the FA Cup. Yes, I know you guys haven't. You've come close to finishing in the Champions League spot, that type of thing. But I mean, clearly, by my understanding, you guys are definitely overachieving, given with the resources that you guys have.
Yeah.
I want to ask you, look, I know Fofana broke his leg last week, but Amate slotted in perfectly. You've also signed Patson Daka and Boubacar Somare, but what are you hoping for this season? I mean, like I said, you've already won the Community Shield, so what are you hoping for Leicester this season?
Yeah, look, it's we've signed really well, and we have much better strength in depth. So the last 2 seasons, I think, particularly with the way COVID's impacted, games have got condensed. Leicester hasn't had the squad depth, particularly last year, a condensed season and playing in Europe. I think that was just a bit too much. And I think it's amazing we won the FA Cup, because we went into that final patched up. The number of players, we couldn't, we were without our best winger in Barnes. We had to play a winger at wing back. We had to play fullbacks at centre back. I mean, it was, we really were, Tielemans was playing on fumes by that stage.
Yeah, by the time
football, and yet pulls off that incredible goal. I do think we're better placed. With Somare, we've also got a really, really talented boy called Dewsbury Hall, who had a brilliant season in the Championship last year. Come through our academy, looks a quality footballer. Midfield stacked. We've now got strength in depth up front with Daka and Iniaccio. And that's been the first time, really. It's been the first time in a long time we haven't just been reliant on Vardy up front.
On Vardy, for real.
So that's the only issue with the Fofana injury. Obviously, Evans is getting older now, still a top player. I think he's got a bit of a foot injury, so we won't see him in the first part of the season. We're a bit light there. We probably need to sign another centre-back, as well as Marty did the other day. I think we probably need to sign another one. And I think if Leicester just had a right winger, Mark Albrighton's fabulous. He can fill in on the right and the left, and even if he has to, he'll play wing back. He'll do anything for the team. But ideally, we probably need another winger. I think if we sign another centre back just to offer a bit of depth, if we did get another winger, then I think Leicester could trouble. Well, I'd go so far to say top 6. In fact, I'd be really confident. Notwithstanding injuries, we could hit top 6. And if we stayed relatively injury free, who knows, top 4. I've got a feeling we're targeting the Europa League this year. And I think we'll find our midweek side will be a bit different from our weekend side. We've got the strength in depth to do that now. We've got some really good players coming back. James Justin, who I think was the best left back in England last year, is back from injury. We've got Ricardo Pereira, who missed most of last season, back fully fit, back to his best. And Harvey Barnes, who missed from February onwards. So we lost a lot of goals with him out of the side. So I think if we stay reasonably fit, we've got better strength in depth, and I'm pretty confident that Leicester can push the big boys again. I'm not going to go so far to say we'll break into the top 4. We might not even finish top 6, but I feel pretty confident we can.
Okay, fair enough. But I echo the exact same sentiments again. Like I said, like we've said, this hasn't been coming recently. It's been coming on for a while. I do have one question, though, tongue in cheek, which I'm going to ask you. Do you think Maddison is coming to Arsenal? Please say yes.
If it does happen, and I do think it's unlikely, but if it does happen, it'll be on Leicester's terms, and it'll be because Leicester are okay selling him at the price they're selling him, and they would feel that they've got an adequate replacement. My personal view on Maddison is, and I wouldn't normally comment on this, but I'm not the chaplain at the club anymore, so I'm talking as a keen observer and fan. Is I believe James Maddison could become the greatest creative force England have had since Paul Gascoigne. I know people think that could be Grealish, but I think Maddison can do things that a lot of other players can't do. But I think there's some concerns about his hip. And also, he really probably this season, he's got to put it together consistently. So he probably needs to stay injury free. I've got to say there was a period last season when we had most of our players fit, apart from Ricardo Pereira, when he was fully fit for about 8 games, and Leicester were unbeatable. I think we could have taken on anyone down. And he was central to that. So I think I think the jury's out on whether Maddison can go from being a really top player to becoming a truly, truly great player. And I think this might be the season where that gets tested. And I think for that reason, because even the other day in the Community Shield, I thought he bossed it for pretty much most of the game. He got into pockets of space. He sprayed the ball around. He certainly in the first half he was absolutely unplayable at times, and I don't think Man City's midfield quite knew what to do with him. So I think there is a player in there that is the potential for him to go to another level and to move into the world, and that is the question that's still got to be asked. And maybe it's the question Leicester is still asking. In which case 70 million for Maddison would be a bargain. But if he doesn't, Leicester would feel like, well, okay, we're able to sign another one and a right winger, and we've still got some money in the bank. So it'd be interesting to see. I think he's on his day. I think he's magic. He really is. He does things. He can unlock defenses. He sees those pockets of spaces. He gets those little balls in behind for Vardy or for Barnes. On his day when fully fit, he's one of the best in the Premier League. So I hope you don't get him.
I hope we do, because like you said, I think if he wasn't injured for as long as he was last season, he definitely would have been in the England squad at the Euro. Definitely, I think he would have been. But we've come to the end. Bruce, I must once again, I feel like I can chat to you all evening, but once again I want to say thank you for coming on and giving your awesome insight. Hopefully we can do this again soon, especially hopefully under much better circumstances. Hopefully Arsenal and Leicester, or Arsenal up there with Leicester. Then I won't be so pessimistic. But once again, I just want to wish you all the best at Stellenbosch. I want to wish Leicester all the best for the season, except when they play Arsenal. Obviously. And just thank you for coming on.
Great. God bless you. And thanks so much for having me on the show. And for those who are listening in or watching later, I hope this has been informative and enjoyable as well. But I want to wish you all the best with this show. And I hope for you it goes from strength to strength. God bless you.
Thank you so much, Bruce. That means a lot to me. Enjoy your evening. Have a lovely one.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Yes, bye-bye.